I'm Vanessa Ehrlich, Director of Lifelong Learning at Macomb Solel Lakeside. Welcome, welcome to everybody. And if you have a chat, you can chat to me. Hopefully we'll have some time to ask some questions. We have more than one presenter. And so with that, I throw it to Diane.
Okay, good evening. I'm Diane Zidman, and along with my Tikkun Olam co-chair, Wendy Rhodes, we'd like to welcome you to part 3 of Building a Just Society. A big shout out to my program co-chairs, Amy Plotnick and Rich Amon. There wouldn't be a program without your support, dedication, and hard work. And without further delay, I'd like to turn the program over to Rabbi Ike Serrata. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. It's great to see everybody. I'm so glad to be here, and thanks to you and the co-chairs for making this happen tonight. I will be introducing folks and trying to keep track of time as well. So the question is why do we do this work is the way we want to start. And I got to say that, you know, if you're here, you probably know why we do this work, right? So there isn't much that I have to say, but I do want to point out that it happens that the Torah portion that we read this week is Kedoshim. And Kedoshim begins with, you shall be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. It's one of the best parts of the Torah, certainly maybe the best part of the book of Leviticus, where it tells us that if we want to be holy, if we want to be good people, then we have to, in a sense, do the things that God does in the Torah. And when Adam and Eve leave the Garden of Eden, God makes clothes for them. When the Israelites are hungry in the desert, God gives them food to eat. Right? So God provides for human needs. And so that's what we have to do as well. So that's what it means to be holy, is to do the work of making the world a better place, doing the work of Tikkun Olam. And so that's why we do this work. Now, I think, is my colleague here, Rabbi Evan, to talk about the next part?
I do not see him.
I do not see him either. So.
Well, then, Rich, maybe you'll do what is a campaign, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So if you could put up that first slide, please, Wayne, it would help. So why do we organize? We organize to create a course of actions to achieve a goal. And this program will identify some of our social justice partners and the issues they are addressing and the campaigns they are supporting. The environment was a focus of yesterday's adult education featuring the Jewish Earth Alliance, and due to the presentation yesterday and some time constraints, this topic is not being covered tonight. Suffice to say, Macomb has a very, very strong Green Committee. An issue is an important subject that people wish to address. For example, immigration, racism, as we all know, we're all too aware, many, many more. So this is what actions look like. Actions without a campaign, they don't go anywhere. Campaigns are sustained efforts towards a specific outcome or an issue. It is not a single action. Campaigns are different than one-time protests. One-time protests, like an immigration rally, can raise people's awareness, but the power of a campaign is that an action is over. That after an action is over and people ask how can help make change, we offer specific actions for them to take. Campaigns inspire people to take further action in addition to helping them understand the depth of the problem. And all this adds up to real change. So can you go back one slide, please, Wayne? So these campaigns have a specific goal. It is a series of specific actions. And now the next one. Campaigns are a useful way to make change because they have specific defined goals that build momentum and energy rather than spreading energy among different actions that don't achieve concrete gains. They have a specific target, the individual or individuals that can make the change, allowing them to better use limited movement resources. They use many different kinds of tactics and actions, offering a range of ways for people to join and participate. They increase the effectiveness of educational events by showing how each action builds on previous steps and moves toward the goal. They keep pressure over time in order to win concessions, as opposed to one-time actions that allow the target to just wait until the storm blows over. And they build grassroots leadership and connect new allies, take the offensive and build their own timeline for change. And this is somewhat was addressed last week, 2 weeks ago by Julie Weil. You want to, this is a case where the total is greater than the sum of the parts, where we work in coalition amongst ourselves and among others in the faith-based community. And tonight, as we're going to learn, we're going to hear several of our partners and their current campaigns. Rabbi, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Rich. And I'm just really excited about this evening to be able to introduce several wonderful folks who are our partners in this work, who we are allies with, and doing our best to be of help on a number of issues. So one of the partners that we have is the Religious Action Center in Washington, D.C., which is the reform movement's arm for doing this kind of campaign work. And it's my honor to introduce Yuri Jacoby, who joined the RAC not that long ago. So we haven't had a chance to meet in person yet, but hopefully it won't be too long before that happens. But I know you joined the RAC in 2019 as legislative manager, after being a staffer on Capitol Hill for 5 years and then working with nonprofits representing HIV issues and criminal justice issues. And now you manage the day-to-day work of the federal policy team, including the Eisendrath interns, of which my partner, Rabbi Evan Moffick, once was one of those Eisendrath interns, and helped guide the RAC federal policy strategy. Yuri has a BA in political science from Gettysburg University. He grew up in San Francisco, attending Congregation Emmanuel. Does that mean the singers were your rabbis? Are they at Emmanuel?
Not at that time. I'm not actually sure. Rabbi Mintz was my lead rabbi, guide rabbi, and I believe she's still there and very active.
Yeah, very nice. Well, thank you for being here. Welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you this evening. My name's Yuri Jacoby. So I'm speaking to you from Alexandria, Virginia, just across the river from Washington, D.C. And also thank you to Rich, Diane, Vanessa, and you all for inviting me to join you this evening to provide an overview of the Religious Action Center Racial Justice Campaign and our Freedom to Vote Federal Advocacy Campaign. Rabbi gave a great overview of kind of our work, but just as a brief reminder, so the RAC is a joint instrumentality of the Union for Reform Judaism and the Central Conference of American Rabbis. So we represent the entire movement, and we're very proud that our movement is the most diverse Jewish movement in North America. And we advocate to all levels of government. So that includes, as you'll hear later on, at the state level, the federal level here in the United States, as well as in Canada at the provincial and federal level. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Just 1 second. All right. Everybody can see that all right? Great. Our real mission and the vision for this campaign and our North Star for all of our work, but particularly this campaign, is to achieve a world in which all people experience wholeness, justice, and compassion. So this is the world that we want to create and build. However, we recognize that especially these days and throughout history, there's an incredible amount of work to be done. And we know that it's not our duty to necessarily complete the work, but it is our duty to continue this work. And so this is a kind of a brief glimpse of the world as it is, or at least as it was just across the river on January 6th. And in 2020 and on January 6th, really the United States and much of the world really faced a racial reckoning of 400 years of oppression and dehumanization. And January 6th really provided a clear moment of the urgency, particularly for many white people in the United States, that people of color in this country experience systemic racism on a daily basis. As Jews, we commit to this racial justice work. We commit to this racial justice work, and we commit to hearing the nearly 1 million voices of Jews of color. And we commit to confront the systems of racism and oppression in our country, our communities, our congregations, and institutions. So importantly, and I'm not going to be able to touch on this today, but our work will also, a big part of this campaign is also acknowledging and addressing racism, that racism is something that we need to deal with within the Jewish community and within our congregations and our own institutions. So our fantastic Audacious Hospitality team will be leading this racial equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And I'll share the link to register for the launch of our campaign on April 28th at the end, but I just want to put in a quick plug for our great team of led by Yolanda Savage Narva from our Audacious Hospitality team that will go into depth about some of the work that you can do and congregations can do during this campaign. And this is really kind of a brief slide that encapsulates our theory. So it's about both mirrors and windows. So it's about staring at ourselves in the mirror to see what work we need to do internally, as well as looking outward to see how we can affect and create change at the state, local, and within our community. So as I touched upon, we have 3 broad areas that all work together to begin dismantling systemic racism, both within our Jewish communities and society as a whole. We have our federal advocacy campaign, our state advocacy campaigns, and our Ready campaign. We certainly recognize that we needed both a federal advocacy and state advocacy campaigns because of the way that the United States system works. There are many laws such as criminal justice reform and even jurisdictions for state and local elections that federal legislation is unable to change. But we recognize the power and the extreme need for federal action to change systemic racism. So getting down into the Freedom to Vote campaign, this is just kind of another visual of how the racial justice campaign is structured. And here, this is kind of, sorry, just moved on a little bit too quickly, but we have 3 areas where we really see as our prime focus for the federal advocacy campaign, which is focused on the freedom to vote. So it's educating our communities and those others in our society, influencing the public conversation. There are many tactics such as mobilizations, protests, other actions that we can take to do that. And then opportunities to take action and advocate, either by calling or writing members of Congress and your elected officials, or by directly meeting with them, either virtually or hopefully one day in person. So we, after a lengthy research process led by our lay leaders and receiving feedback from both clergy and our lay leaders, we came to choose a Freedom to Vote campaign. So voting rights is really in the DNA of the RAC, of the reform movement. We were founded in 1959 as the civil rights movement and voting rights movement was really taking hold. And it was one of the foundational issues that that really drove our work for the first decades. In fact, as is often noted, the RAC was actually the host to many coalitions that helped draft parts of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And this past year in 2020, you might have participated in our 2020 civic engagement campaign, which activated 15,000 leaders and mobilized and made over 800,000 voter contacts. And one of the pillars of that campaign was combating voter suppression. So following the 2020 elections, which had historic turnout, despite the pandemic and deliberate barriers to silence voices, we recognize that these barriers were only going to increase, particularly because of the 2013 Shelby versus Holder decision, which essentially gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act and removed the pre-clearance protection for states and jurisdictions that had a history of voter suppression. So today, there are just in this year, more than 360 voter suppression bills that have been introduced at the state level. However, federal legislation can block many of those laws and actions and reverse many of the trends and changes that have been taking place by creating national standards and by restoring the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So, and we firmly believe this campaign is founded on that whatever our color, background, zip code, we believe that voters pick our leaders and our leaders do not get to pick their voters. So when it comes to our elections, we want a transparent process we can trust and that all Americans can feel that they have an equal freedom to vote. So moving on. So we have two primary goals for the federal advocacy campaign. The first goal, which is to pass the For the People Act. So the For the People Act, or HR1 S1, was actually reintroduced and quickly passed the House on March 3rd. That was because of a procedural process that the House was able to fast track the bill since it had passed the previous Congress. It is now awaiting consideration in the Senate committee, and we expect that to happen sometime in May, although timing is probably the hardest part of this campaign. The For the People Act would set national standards for federal elections, and that's the key term, federal elections. This would not have an impact for state and local elections. It would establish, it would expand voter registration, both online and automatic, as well as enable same-day registration for federal elections. It would also create national standards for voting early, voting by mail, and a whole host of other things. It has three big buckets. The first is national standards for federal elections. There is a second bucket of getting big money and dark money out of elections and campaign finance reform. And then there's a third piece that is about government ethics and oversight. But by far the largest section and our primary focus of this campaign is the national standards for federal elections. And one other key piece that I forgot to mention, which I think is particularly important for Illinois, is that the For the People Act contains the restores voting rights for people who are formerly incarcerated and have completed their sentences. The second goal of the campaign is to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. This bill has not been reintroduced into the 117th Congress. Last Congress, it was HR 4, the bill number. It's currently being slightly tweaked, and there is actually a Supreme Court case from Arizona that we are waiting a decision on, which could impact what the final form of the bill looks like. So this bill is to directly address the Supreme Court decision in the 2013 Shelby versus Holder case. It would modernize and restore the pre-clearance formula that the Supreme Court said was invalid. We vehemently disagree with that decision. However, we need to honor the Supreme Court's decision and work to modernize and strengthen the Voting Rights Act. So perhaps the best part about this campaign, other than hopefully achieving victory and restoring and strengthening democracy, is that we have a huge range of national and a growing list of local partners who are working on this, from the ACLU to NAACP, to think tanks, to other organizers and grassroots groups. This is not something that just the reform movement is working on. This is, across the political spectrum, and nonpartisan spectrum. And it's really a giant and growing coalition of partners. So here's I think I'm running a little short on time, but here's just a brief outline of the timeline. So we're in April. We're still waiting on the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to be reintroduced. We expect that to be later in June, maybe early July, and to use the summer as an opportunity and spring as an opportunity to educate, mobilize, and then move on to engaging with directly through advocacy with our elected officials. So here's a just quick list of some actions that we've already sketched out. Again, the biggest thing with this campaign, particularly for the People Act, is timing at this point is a little bit uncertain. We expect there to be a markup in May. However, Senate passage and the process in the Senate is still undetermined because of the 60 vote threshold to get or the filibuster to get an up or down vote on and final passage in the Senate. I think I just have one more. So I'll stop sharing. So what's up next is April 28th at 8 p.m. and I'll share the link to register is our campaign launch. And also on May 8th, I'll just put it out there. We are one of our first big mobilization actions with our coalition partners is on the Freedom to Vote Action Day on May 8th, where we'll have motorcades or votercades going through cities across the United States, including, I believe there's already 3 organizers in Chicago. So I'll share that link in here as well. And thank you so much again for having me join you this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here, Yuri. I love the way you said the great thing about this, other than restoring democracy. So, yeah, I think restoring democracy is a pretty good feature of this bill. So that's great. Thank you so much for helping us figure out how we can get involved. I'm about to turn this over to someone who really doesn't need an introduction around here, I think, Jack Kaplan. Jack, just in case somebody's on here who doesn't know, is a member of Macomb Soleil Lakeside and on our board of directors, a past president of our legacy congregation, Lakeside. And Before his recent retirement and spending time with his grandchild in Washington, D.C., Jack retired as the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for the United Way of Illinois. And now I think he's working almost as hard, if not harder, on working with RAC Illinois on our core team of RAC Illinois to work with us on the state level doing things here. So Jack, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ike. And it's great to see everyone in the Zoom meeting room tonight. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about RAC Illinois. You just heard from Yuri about the National RAC campaign and efforts. And in that slide he had of the gears, the statewide gear is Illinois RAC. The Illinois Religious Action Center of Illinois is that statewide gear, which is here to really amplify and achieve that same vision to achieve a more holistic, just, and compassionate world. So RAC Illinois is our collectively organized Reformed Jewish community that builds and leverages our power here in Illinois for a more just and compassionate land of Lincoln for all. We represent more than 25 congregations and 50,000 Reformed Jews across Illinois. RAC Illinois is locally led with clergy, including our own Rabbi Serrata, who is on our core team along with me and several others, lay leaders, and youth that have identified the following as our initial shared priorities. First of all, racial justice, which Yuri also highlighted and amplified, which includes criminal justice reform, gun violence prevention, equity in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. And then also immigrant justice, such as provisions to strengthen and enforce the Trust Act, access to health and human services for undocumented individuals and families, and funding and support for deportation defense. So RAC Illinois, we publicly launched just 3 years ago in spring 2018. And over the past 3 years, we've already been able to celebrate significant victories along with our coalition partners in both of our priority areas. In the racial justice area, we were active members this past year of the Campaign to End Money Bond, which advocated for the Pretrial Fairness Act, which makes Illinois the first state in the nation to completely abolish money bail and transform the pretrial justice system. This is a monumental achievement, and we are very proud to have been a part of the coalition that was able to get this over the finish line just this past January during the lame duck session in Springfield. In the immigration justice reform area, we were part of the campaign for a welcoming Illinois, led by the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, in support of 2 bills that were passed and enacted in 2019. The Keep Illinois Family Together Act prohibits state and local law enforcement from deputizing officers as ICE agents. The Retaining Illinois Student Equity Act, or RISE Act, provides equitable access to financial aid for higher education for those previously denied, especially DACA and transgender students, and predominantly African-American students disproportionately impacted by under-resourced schools. RAC Illinois also led a civic engagement campaign, as many of you know, in 2020, that engaged members from all of our congregations in efforts to increase voter participation among our own congregations, combat voter suppression across the country, and increase youth involvement in the electoral process. I am proud to say that Macomb Soleil Lakeside was truly a leader in the number of members who participated in this campaign and the impact we had on the goals that were set out for success. So way to go, Macomb. Now, let's talk about our racial justice priority bill this session in Springfield. Mental illness affects millions of Illinoisans each year, but many individuals are unable to access appropriate treatment. According to Mental Health America, 1.75 million adults in Illinois experience mental illness, but more than half of them, 56%, do not receive treatment. Some common barriers to accessing mental health services include lack of information, the high cost of treatment, and distance having to travel to treatment. Access to mental health care and addiction treatment is a racial justice issue. Significant racial disparities in access to mental health services are well documented. Communities of color face multiple barriers to effective treatment, including lower rates of insurance coverage, mistrust of the healthcare system due to decades of abuse, and lack of diversity among practitioners. To prevent a mental health or substance use crisis from escalating into a life-threatening emergency, we must invest in early intervention and community-based crisis services to help people before an emergency situation develops. Studies demonstrate that mobile crisis response teams help divert people from psychiatric hospitalization and instead connect them to community-based care, improving mental health outcomes. Although Illinois does offer some community-based crisis response services, these services are underutilized and not widely available. Adult mobile crisis response services, funded primarily through Medicaid, are designed to assist individuals and require immediate but non-emergency support for mental health or substance abuse conditions. The Crisis and Referral Entry Services Hotline, also called the CARES line, links callers to service providers who can visit the crisis location to stabilize the situation and connect individuals with appropriate treatment. Underutilization and limited access to these services contribute to greater likelihood of crisis escalation, 911 emergency response, and psychiatric hospitalization. The Alternatives to Crisis Escalation Act, or ACE Act, is RAC Illinois' racial justice priority for the 2021 legislative session. The ACE Act is designed to prevent dangerous escalation of mental health and substance use crises by increasing awareness of the adult mobile crisis response services, strengthening the capacity and effectiveness of the CARES hotline, and expanding eligibility to all adults, regardless of their insurance status. These measures would reduce reliance on 911 emergency calls and help to build a foundation for an eventual 988 mental health crisis hotline system in Illinois. Our chief sponsors of the ACE Act are Representative Barbara Hernandez in the House and Robert Peters in the Senate. Notably, Senator Peters was also the chief sponsor in the Senate for the Pretrial Fairness Act. If you are interested in participating in constituent meetings with your local state legislators to seek their support for this legislation, you can get back to me or to our state organizer and also Macomb fellow member, Julie Webb. Just contact either one of us and we can connect you with those who are organizing meetings in legislative districts across Illinois, and certainly those who represent districts that Macomb, Celeste Lakeside live in. Finally, I want to highlight our third annual Jewish Action Days for Immigrant Justice, along with our Jewish community partners, Highest Immigration and Citizenship, the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, who you will be hearing from shortly, and Chicago Teruah Cluster. You are invited to join leaders from across the Jewish community as we act together to support the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights 2021 state platform and affirm Illinois as a welcoming state for all. A link to the training for the event on May 4th will be included in the chat, and further details on the meetings with key elected officials on May 12th will be provided at a later date. So I thank you again, all of you Macomites, for all you've done in support of our social justice work in the past. And I look forward to our continued partnership going forward. With that, I conclude my remarks, and I will be happy to answer any questions if time permits.
Well, I think time doesn't permit at the moment, but maybe at the end, Jack. So if you can hang on just a little longer, but if not, give my regards to Marion and to Max and Sophie and the new grandchild. It's wonderful that you get that that joy of being there with them. So, and thanks for giving a shout out to Julie Webb, who I think is on our call this evening and is a member of Macomb Soleil Lakeside and is the lead organizer for RAC Illinois. So Julie, thanks for everything that you do to keep this machine oiled and going forward. So appreciate it very much. And as Jack mentioned, one of our partners is the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs. I know a number of our members have been involved with JCUA for many years. But it's my honor tonight to introduce the lead organizer for JCUA, Anna Rubin, who started out with JCUA as an Avodah fellow, I think, back in 2015. Then did a year working with Interfaith Worker Justice and then back to JCUA. Anna has a BA in religion with a certificate in Jewish studies from Princeton University, which is something I didn't know about you until today, Anna. So that's very interesting. And she does organizing on immigration issues for JCUA. So it's my honor to turn this over to you. It was nice to see you out at our congressman's office last week.
Yes, thank you so much, Rabbi Serrata, and thank you again for your beautiful words at that action last week. Everyone should ask and hear more about it, but I know we don't have time to go into it today. Thank you all for having me on the call tonight. Thank you, Vanessa, Diane, Rich, Wayne, everyone who is organizing. So appreciate you bringing JCUA into this space and really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you a bit about JCUA. So I'm just going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to go through quite quickly, but I just want to give you both a taste of JCUA and information about some of our ongoing campaigns. So, as many of you may already be aware, JCUA is a multiracial, intergenerational community of Jews working in coalition with other marginalized communities in Chicago and the suburbs towards social, racial, and economic justice, right? We say we are the voice of Jewish social justice in Chicago. We're fighting for poverty. We're combating poverty, racism, and anti-Semitism in the work that we do every day. And importantly, and something that Rich wanted me to highlight very directly, and that is very close to our hearts and in our bodies right now, is that JCUA was founded by Rabbi Robert Marks, Zichrono Livracha, who, as we know, was also rabbi at Soleil, and I believe at the time was rabbi at Soleil, please correct me if I'm wrong, when he founded JCUA. So the history is long and deep there. We were founded in 1964 by Rabbi Robert Marks, and spent our early years very much in the spirit of the work we are doing now, right? We spent our early years as part of the Contract Buyers League, bringing the Jewish community into the fight for fair housing on Chicago's South and West sides, being unafraid to call out Jewish landlords, Jewish contract sellers, right? Saying, we are the Jewish community, you are a part of our community, and we do not stand by these actions, right? And so I think we very much are still bringing that spirit into the work we are doing today, turning to our Jewish community and saying, we cannot stand idly by, we need to take action when we see injustices happening in our own community and from our own community. And so we continue that work in the spirit of Rabbi Marks and in the spirit of those early years. This is just a quick slide. I'm not going to go into all of these campaigns, but this is the kind of work that JCUA has been doing since we really focused and started switching to a community organizing model about 7 years ago at this point. So we've been a part of various grassroots campaigns and coalition efforts in Chicago and Illinois, including the work to bring a level 1 trauma center to the south side of Chicago at the University of Chicago, including passing the Illinois Domestic Workers Bill of Rights at the state level, passing amendments to Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance that allows our immigrant and undocumented neighbors and community members to have a little bit more safety, a little bit more security in Chicago when it comes to police and ICE interaction. And we were part of, unfortunately, the ultimately unsuccessful fair tax effort, but it was a hard fought, well fought, and enthusiastically fought campaign that JCUA was a part of. And like I believe Rich spoke about at the beginning of this program, right? What JCUA is doing is building our people power, right? We are bringing the Jewish community into these fights. And that can look a lot of different ways, as you can see in these photos, all of these shining faces. But it can look a lot of different ways, right? It can look like lobbying our elected representatives, canvassing, phone banking, direct actions like the one that Rabbi Serrata spoke at last week. It looks like trainings, it looks like educational programming, it looks like Beitim Midrash. Is that how you conjugate that? I'm not totally sure. B'tei, I'm seeing, yeah, there we go. It looks like community meetings, one-on-ones, right? It really means bringing people together, doing the work in the way that feels meaningful for them around the issues that are in their self-interest and that speak to them deeply. So just to give a quick overview of what JCUA looks like today, we've got a campaign around police accountability that we've been working on at the city level that actually I need to update this. We are no longer working to pass an ordinance called the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability. We are now working to pass an ordinance called Empowering Communities for Public Safety, ECPS. That's a city level campaign. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but is the work we do around police accountability in Chicago at the moment. Jack already spoke to, and Celeste will speak more to, the work we do around immigration justice with the Campaign for Welcoming Illinois, ICER, and this year's Everybody In platform. So I won't go into detail around that, but we're always excited to be able to partner with RAC Illinois and Monomano and our other ICER partners on that immigration work. And then the campaign I'm going to talk a little bit more about tonight is our housing justice work around Bring Chicago Home. But I just wanted to quickly add before I talk about that, that there's a number of other programs that JCUA has that aren't just our organizing campaigns. So for example, we have our Or Tzedek teen internship program. That's a September through May, a school year long program around social justice, organizing, and building teen power in the Jewish community. And also offshoots of that include an organizing caucus and a queer youth caucus. So those are our teen programs. We have a similar college fellowship program. We have a Jews of Color caucus for members of our community who are Jews of color, as well as white working groups for members of our community who are white and thinking critically about their role in racial justice work. And then importantly for a lot of folks, I believe on this call, we do geographic base building, really building up our communities in different parts of the city and suburbs, including a North Suburban organizing team that focuses specifically on building community and relationships with our legislators in the North suburbs. We also have a congregation partner network that Macomb Solo Lakeside is a part of, and we are very excited about that. So you are among a bevy of other congregations in the area, and we are grateful for your participation in that work. Okay, and now how much time do I have left, Rabbi Serrata? I think none. So but I want to talk quickly. What is you're on mute.
Talk quickly, go ahead.
Okay, so just you were on mute, Rabbi Serrata. Sorry if you were trying to say something.
Go ahead, couple of minutes.
Okay, great. So two quick campaigns I want to talk about quickly tonight are the Bring Chicago Home campaign, and then quickly a campaign around progressive revenue. So we can acknowledge here that housing insecurity, homelessness. These are structural and political problems that we see facing our city, state, communities today, and it has only been exacerbated through the pandemic, right? I'll just leave this up for a moment, but these are some of the, what I find to be horrifying statistics of the more than 86,000 people who are homeless in Chicago at the moment. So Bring Chicago Home is aiming to, and you can read this here, but I'll just say it for folks who are more auditory learners, aiming to restructure the real estate transfer tax. So there's a one-time tax on properties when they are sold that will address a budget deficit and create a new, substantial, and legally dedicated revenue stream to provide permanent, affordable, permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness. So what does this mean? This means, oh, sorry, I want to go back. There we go. No. This means there would be a tax cut on properties sold under $1 million, but a tax increase on property sales over $1 million. And the revenue generated from that would be dedicated to the city's, some of it would be dedicated to the city's general budget, and a portion of it would be going directly to address homelessness in the city, right? So it's one of those taxes where the thing that is being taxed, the kind of thing being taxed, is going to go directly to the problem, a problem that is in the same theme or vein. This is currently primarily a campaign taking place in the city of Chicago. We are trying to get a referendum on an upcoming election ballot in 2022. It may be the primary, it may be the general, we're not sure. That would have the people of the city of Chicago saying, yes, this is a tax that we want, and yes, we want that money to go to providing permanent housing for currently homeless individuals. But there's also a state path to victory, which is why we're bringing that up tonight. If Lori Lightfoot decides that she wants the real estate transfer tax to be dealt with at the state level instead of the city level, then we will need to be bringing our state level legislators on board with this campaign as well. So that's not currently the path that we're on, but it may be a path that we're on, and that will become clear over time. So this is one campaign we're working on. Another campaign is a campaign to pass a series of progressive revenue options at the state level. JCOA is a supporter on this campaign. It is not one of our core issues or campaigns, but we have had an opportunity to talk with Representative Bob Morgan, who I think is representative for many of you, about this. And there are several action steps that you can take if progressive revenue, such as the fair tax, was an issue that you care deeply about and want to continue to support moving forward. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Again, it's not one of our main committees, but just wanted to let folks know that that is also, progressive revenue work is also work that you were able to get involved with.
Great.
I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. We really appreciate your being here. And thanks for mentioning the Ort Tzedek program for teens. We've got a few teens on this call, and I just want to make sure you guys know about that. Two of my kids went through the Ort Tzedek program, had a great time and learned a lot. And one of them used it as the basis for her college entrance essay. So, which got her to a place that was meaningful for her. So nice of you to mention it. We've got, I was going to give Celeste the introduction, part of what I talked about at the rally at our congressman at Brad Schneider's office last week, but I'm going to skip that in the interest of time. You'll have to hear me preach about it some other time. But because I really want to introduce Celeste Flores, who's the director of community building for Monomano. She was born to immigrant parents, but born and raised in Lake County herself, a lifelong member of Most Blessed Trinity Parish. And before Monomano, she spent 6 years working on environmental justice issues. Most recently as the Lake County Outreach Director at Faith in Place, that a number of our members are involved at as well. And appropriate to mention that as Earth Day is coming up. Celeste has a BA in History and Theology and was a recipient of the 2020 Energy News Network's 40 Under 40 Award. So it's very nice to have you with us, and welcome, Celeste.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me here. I'm gonna share my screen and be brief in my remarks. I know we still have some other stuff we need to get to, and it's loading, but thank you so much. Like it's already been said, my name is Celeste Flores, and I currently work at Monomano Family Resource Center. We have two main offices. We have one in Round Lake Park and also opened one about a year ago in North Chicago, but because of COVID, it's not as well known. And we used to have community sites both in Lake County and McHenry County, but those have been closed during this time. So our mission is to empower the immigrant communities and their families living in Lake County, Illinois, to become full participants of their communities. We have 5 main program areas, but today I'm going to focus on our COVID response, but also democracy in action. So obviously, everyone has been hit by COVID-19, but predominantly our focus has been the immigrant, Black and Brown community. And one of the things we first realized was that at the federal level, people that were undocumented were not going to be receiving the same financial help as citizens. So we created this what we call Tanda, this emergency fund. This is something that's very prevalent in Latin American countries. And, you know, it was for anyone that was impacted by COVID and couldn't gain any federal assistance. So we helped with food, medication, and a lot of other things. And within that, we already had a group that was called the Health Navigators Program, and they were people that educated the community on different health aspects. And all of their focus now has been informing everyone about COVID-19, the precautions to take to not have it, and then also now education on the vaccine. So this work has been tremendous, especially getting this information out to the Spanish-speaking community and really trying to make sure that everyone understands why we should get vaccinated, and actually are having an event on Saturday in North Chicago to really try getting those communities vaccinated, because especially here in Lake County, although the Latino community in general doesn't make a huge population, it was pretty heavy hit when it came to COVID-19. And, you know, a lot of the reasons, because there's more than one family living in the household, because, you know, the frontline workers couldn't, you know, work from home. So I just wanted to mention that. And then our Democracy in Action, the reason I'm here. So this is our program that we engage people to learn their rights, to know how to advocate for themselves. And a part of that work is that we partner with ICER, who you guys have already heard about, and plenty of, it seems like y'all already are connected, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. And, you know, as we were looking at what do we want to pass at the state level, we've already had some amazing wins. You've heard about some tonight. We were like, how can we keep fighting for this? What do we need in our state this year, as we've lived a year of COVID, as we've lived 4 years of Donald Trump's administration? What do we need at the federal level? And we came up with 3 pillars: safety for all, healthcare for all, and economic security for all, and really trying to make Illinois one of the most welcoming states that we have for every immigrant. So for safety for all, what does this mean? You heard about the Trust Act. Unfortunately, we gotta go back. Sometimes we pass legislation and there's 1 or 2 things that we miss. And that's what we're seeing here. We want to make sure that there's completely a separation between ICE and local police. In McHenry County, the county still has a contract with ICE, and it's something we're actively engaged with as Monomano. But we want to make sure that across the whole state, that they're actually being held accountable, that there's consequences. So we have the Illinois Way Forward. It's a legislation that we have at the state level, and it really further restricts police from cooperating with ICE. And another bill we have is the right to counsel. So this really is trying to make sure that people are able to get legal representation, because that's not the case right now. So these are 2 bills that we currently have that we're advocating for, that a lot of the groups that have already presented here have also been advocating for. We've all been meeting with our legislators, getting them on board for this. And our second pillar is healthcare for all. So really, as people are recovering, as we're trying to figure out what is this life with COVID, after COVID, we want to make sure that everyone's covered regardless of their immigration status. And we want to do this through legislation again, right? So we have this Healthcare Equity and Access Care Act, and really trying to make sure that the hospitals are actually being held accountable and that they're being transparent with everything that they're supposed to be providing anyone, regardless of their status, if they need help with paying their bills. So this is also at the state level. We're also advocating for this. And our third pillar is economic security for all. So really making sure that everyone's able to thrive and succeed, that no one's being left behind in this economy, and that we're actually making it more welcoming. So we also have legislation here that's about earned income credits, and really making sure that it expands this to other people, to ITN numbers, and really making sure that we become the most welcoming state that we possibly can. And then one thing you can do tonight, if you haven't done so already, is you can text welcoming IL to 52886, and it will send you a text message, and you will contact both your senator and your representative, asking them to take our pledge to support our pillars. The page kind of changes as we keep progressing in the legislature, so I'm not sure exactly what you'll get, but you'll also get updates. We're going to be having a hopefully big advocacy virtual rally on May 19th. I don't have more of details from that, but if you text this number, you will get the details. If you want to message me afterwards, or Anna, you will also get that info, because we're still coming up with what that day is going to look like virtually. But that's just a little bit about the work we're doing up here, that I'm doing up here as Monomano with ICER and a lot of people that are on this call.
Thank you very much, Celeste. It's a pleasure to see you here, and I hope we didn't rush you too much there. I appreciate you getting us more or less back on schedule. So
you're good. I used to be an organizer, so I'm going to help the rabbi out here.
I really appreciate it very much. So, and I don't know, Diane, do you have announcements?
I just have kind of a wrap up, I'll do it really quick. Okay, so what I'd like to do is especially thank Rabbi Ike and all of our wonderful social justice speakers who inspired and motivated us tonight to get even more involved. I know you heard a lot of information tonight, but these are just some of the issues that our Tikkun Olam committee is involved in. We also aspire to provide connections with many other social justice issues, including some of the things you see on the screen, but not limited to those. So if you're interested in learning more, and you're already involved and you just want us to give you more support, either contact Wendy Rhodes or myself. What I'd like to do is highlight an upcoming event on April 22nd at 7 p.m. Join Rabbi Sarada and a multi-faith panel for taking care of our planet. What does sacred text teach us? Details in the Zoom link are in the Makom at home. And before I turn the program, I think back to Rabbi Sarada, or maybe directly to Cantor J, I just have one quick quote. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory said, "Community is society with a human face, the place where we know we are not alone." And thank you again for all of you for attending tonight.
Thank you very much, Diane. And just mentioned that we are in the period of the Omer. We're counting the days from Passover to Shavuot, 49 days from liberation from slavery in Egypt to revelation at Sinai. And the idea of these 7 weeks is that we recognize that this is a journey, that revelation doesn't just come automatically, that the things we want don't just get handed to us on a platter. We have to make the journey. We have to take the steps and do the work. And so tonight we heard about some of the work that we're engaged in, and there's plenty of room for all of you to get involved and to do this work and to take one of those steps along the path to revelation. So this is the 23rd day of the Omer, starts tonight. So we say this blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. We bless you, God, for giving us the command of counting the Omer. This is the 23rd day, the 23rd step on the way from slavery in Egypt to revelation at Sinai. And thank you all for being here. And I'm very pleased to turn it over to my partner and colleague, Cantor J. O'Brien, to close out.
Right. And I do have a quick poll. So Cantor J, get ready. everybody, you can take this poll. There's 3 questions. And
Okay. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, this song is called Makom Sheli Bi Ohev, and we are a community called Makom. And I think when I sing this song, it reminds me that empathy is what makes our community sacred. It's what makes our place of gathering a Makom. And maybe with all of this incredible social justice work, we can transform Chicago or Illinois or our nation, the whole world, into that place of meeting and empathy, a Makom. Goes like this. Makom sheli bi ohev. Makom sheli bi ohev. There you have the words. Makom sheli bi ohev. Sham raglai molichot oti. Sing with me in English. Place that my heart holds dear. The place that my heart holds dear. One more. The place that my heart holds dear. There my steps will bring me near. Makom sheli bi ohev. Makom sheli bi ohev. Makom sheli bi ohev. Sham raglai molichot oti. Laila Tov, everyone.
Lila Tov, thank you very much, Cantor J. Thanks to all of our speakers and organizers. It was an honor to be with you tonight, and we love to be allied with you and working on all of these issues.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Hi, thanks for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.